Tom McNamara is Rockford's 41st mayor and is serving a third term after being re-elected in April 2025. He is also the son of former Mayor John McNamara. Mayor McNamara first took office in May 2017 as one of the youngest mayors in the city's history. Since his initial election, Mayor McNamara's administration has focused on neighborhood revitalization, public safety, and economic development. We are honored to have him on this panel today as he continues to support our PS students.
Linda Zuba is a graduate of Wisconsin-Madison Law School and has a master's degree in nursing from Loyola University of Chicago. Born in Columbia, Linda believes in actively helping our community and country, strives to make a difference in the world. She fights for justice, regardless of religion, race, or place of birth, to protect the most vulnerable. It's such a pleasure to have someone with your dedicated activism in our community.
Scott Sanders is the director of the Public Works Department for the City of Rockford. He oversees important architectural projects like the 11th Street Corridor Improvement and the Davis Park redevelopment. He founded the Sanders Design Group and has extensive experience in community development. His degree is in landscape architecture from the University of Illinois Urbana. He is also a Marshall Middle School parent, and we look forward to him sharing his perspective on that. Now, we bring Mr. Robinson now started.
Mr. McNamara, we're going to start with you. What content should remain restricted regarding curriculum in different states for both students and teachers? And is school a place where students should be protected from politics, or should it be a place where they get to see the political side of the world?
So I'm clear, one, thank you. You all are amazing. The performances before this were amazing. I love that you guys are leading this, so thank you for doing that. I'm really thrilled to be with you. But so I'm clear on the question, what content should be restricted? And there was a piece about politics at the end I didn't hear.
Yes, so should school be a place where politics are welcomed, or is it a place where students should be protected from politics?
Okay, well, that's easy. I'm thrilled to be with all of you today. I would say, overarching, I think it needs to be enriching and it needs to be age appropriate. I would also say, I think politics should be part of it. I think it would actually help us as adults, as you all are getting older, because I think one of the biggest things that we need to have is empathy, compassion, and an understanding of someone else's view. And I think the more that you are having those discussions at an earlier age, if that's at someone's home or if that's at a school environment, a safe space that young people feel that they can express their opinions while still being respected, I think would only add to the civility that we hope to see in our community.
Can you speak about this as your perspective as a lawyer?
Yes.
Like the mayor said, thank you for inviting us, and the performances were wonderful. I'm so excited to be here and having a student-run event. It's really an awesome experience. I can speak as a lawyer, but I even before I became a lawyer, it's my second career. I was very active. I've been an activist for a very long time, and I believe it's critical that our students be exposed to what's going on in the country and in the world. You are our future leaders. You're leaders now, and you're growing, but how will you ever learn the diversity and the diverse viewpoints if you're never exposed to them? And so it starts here. Every day, your teachers have the opportunity to expose these different issues to you, political or, race relations. The important aspect, I think, is that it has to be neutral. A teacher should not be imposing their views. It has to be really both-sided. You need to hear both sides of an argument, and it's pretty clear in the state of Illinois. They're very open to what students are learning. It's not like that in a lot of states. There are many lawsuits taking place right now as a result of curriculum being curtailed to avoid some of the more controversial topics. There are lawsuits as a result of banning books. We don't have that issue here. In fact, the governor banned books being banned.
In the interest of time, we're going to stop there and move on to the next question. Mr. Sanders, where do you believe the civic responsibility of protecting freedom of speech for students fits between parents and their teachers?
Well, thank you for having us here. I've been in this auditorium many times, a parent of a couple of kids who have been with you here or still here. My first time on the stage, so this is awesome and this is exciting. The responsibility is a cooperative. I think that both parents and teachers, educators share that responsibility. And I think it starts at home with parents encouraging free discussion, with having challenging conversations with their kids, with tackling subjects that make them perhaps define their values and viewpoints and be comfortable understanding other viewpoints. And then that goes hand in hand with the teachers creating an environment in their classrooms that feels like you can have safe and protected exchange of ideas without fear of being criticized or being able to listen to other girls as well.
I would like to follow up on that, Mr. Mayor. From your position of leadership, how can we strengthen both students and teachers' freedom of speech to equalize fairness for everyone?
How can we strengthen it so that it's equalized for fairness for everyone? I would say one is we need to model it. And I think one big thing that, truthfully, regardless of any political affiliation you have, you're seeing really divisive and at times really embarrassing performances by leaders at all levels. If it's folks like me at the local level or at the state or federal level. I think we should be modeling it, and I think we should be, for schools, I think really creating, I agree wholeheartedly with what Scott said. That primary role is at home, but I think creating that safe space for young people to have those unbiased dialogues and debates inside the classroom will be beneficial. I think if we as the elected leaders are modeling it and they're having the practice of those difficult discussions at the schools, I think would be beneficial for all of us.
So, to Ms. Zuba, as an expert in law, what is the limit on student freedom of speech?
Fortunately, you don't leave your constitutional rights at the school gate. And that is something the Supreme Court said several decades ago in the Tinker case. And so students have a right to express their views, whether they be political, whether they be related to gender issues. You have that right. And that could be either verbally or expressing it to your teachers or parents, unless, but you do have to go back to the school. What are the school policies? If the school says no one can wear a cap, then you know. But if the school doesn't have that policy, you have a right to wear a hat that proclaims a certain thought or a certain political belief. But we always have to go back to what the school policies are. Now, as far as, this is one of the areas that most people do not understand. You know, the school, a public school is like a government entity, and they can, so you do have the right to free speech, but there are restrictions. And the restrictions are, you know, lewd and obscene comments. You can't be promoting drug use and inciting violence. But other than that, it's, you know, if you're following school policy, you're free to give out pamphlets and buttons and clothing that expresses your political belief and expression and views. Did I answer all your question? The question, or is there, am I leaving something out?
So, to what extent does the law protect student freedom of speech?
It will protect your freedom of speech as long as it's not related to lewd, obscene language, any type of incitement of violence. If it substantially disrupts the school curriculum or day, that will also be impacted. So substantially disrupt is a big criteria. But other than that, you know, you do have to follow school rules. You know, the student has a right to go out and protest, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to have any kind of a punishment. A lot of people don't know that, you know, because there is some kind of, what's that?
Alright, Mr. Sanders, as a parent, where do you want the limit of speech for students, freedom of speech for students, sorry? And are there specific cases, like in schools in general, that worry you?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to define our terms as with any educational exercise here. When we talk about protection, when we talk about the enshrined constitutional rights of protection of speech, that's protection from punishment by a government entity or that's interpreted by a school entity. But that doesn't mean speech is free from consequences. You might be free from government punishment, but the things we say have consequences. We bear those sometimes. If Mayor McNamara could stand up right now and say that the Flynn Middle School 7th grade boys basketball team stinks. And that's very true. He would get in trouble for that, though. The Flynn parents wouldn't like that. Flynn parents and guardians wouldn't like that, even though they must know what in their hearts. But where I think that where as a parent, where I worry about it really enters into the realm of bullying, and I think that there's almost maybe a different threshold that can be applied in schools, where out on the streets, out in public discourse, we're protected from saying mean, awful things. We can be awful. We can be mean to people verbally, and if it doesn't raise the point of threatening someone, that's protected speech. But I think that the schools, I would hope as a parent, that the schools have an obligation, a mission to address such behaviors in the school setting and to foster, I love the whole concept here of a more civil discourse, but to foster that level of civil interaction in the schools.
All right, we will now take a few questions from our audience. Whoever we pick, please come up front here, where we will hand you a microphone. All right, who wants to go first?
I have a final question. Sorry.
We've got time.
Mr. Mayor, thinking about how you want our schools to run citywide, how do you recommend schools handle situations where a student's speech may conflict with the values or safety of the school community? Well, like, if we cross a certain line, Or, like, what is that? To what extent is it okay for students to speak their mind?
So you all are seeing firsthand why I go to about 30 schools a year, and you are seeing firsthand why it is the most difficult experience I have because they have the most difficult questions. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this, but I guess I'll try to use a recent example and try to not make it necessarily RPS specific. I don't know all the Japanese like Zuba does, but I will say, I mean, recently you've had students across the country walking out of classrooms. I believe, if I'm accurate, Guilford left school and did a protest out on the street, and I thought that was a really wonderful and beautiful expression of their right to do that. I think if Guilford would have left in the third period and never had returned, I would have had a stronger issue with that. If they left 5 minutes early to organize that, I think it could have been used as like a learning experience. I think there are the laws, there certainly are the school rules. I think there also are young people, and I think we as the adults should not come in that they are trying to do something overtly wrong necessarily. They may just need some education and some using those experiences as a lesson that could be provided to those young people as opposed to following the strict guideline. And I don't know all the rules around RPS and what they can and cannot do, but if it was going to be a really stringent punishment, maybe it shouldn't be if they left 5 minutes early. Maybe it should be a discussion of what the rules are, why the rules are a certain place, and also educating them on ways that they could protest in a way that is in line with the school rules. I don't know if that's a good answer to it, but that's one experience that isn't I have.
I have another question. So like, to Ms. Zuba, like, how do you think that, like, necessarily protesting would help students learn?
I believe in protesting. I believe in the right to protest. And one of the things I say to people when they say, why should anyone protest? It's never worked before. And I remind them of women's rights to vote. Women were out protesting, and they didn't let it even stop them. They had to, because no one was listening. No one cared about their rights. And I have met over the last 10 years women and men in their 80s and 90s who have said to me, I have never felt so inspired than I do today because I see so many people who care. I would tell you personally, as an immigrant who has seen a lot of suffering over the last several years, when I see people out protesting who are saying immigrants matter, immigrants' lives matter, it really makes a difference. It gives us hope. It gives thousands of hope all across the country. How does it just for students and for you to understand that you have that right to protest whatever you believe. And if talk about guns, the person who's pro-guns has just as much right to protest as the person who's an anti-gun protester. And that's the beauty of this country. We have a right. The First Amendment gives us a right to peacefully protest. And so it's one of the most beautiful things because I have worked for many, many years with people from all over the world who, if they went out to protest and said anything about their country, they would be thrown in jail and right up hell for years and years and years. And so in the United States, at this point still in our time, we have that right. And it's really something that we should all celebrate. And you don't have to go out and protest, but just know that it's part of our First Amendment. It's one of the most powerful fundamental rights that we have.
Right.
So can I just add something to that really quick? I I would just say specifically for the young people, really anyone, but specifically for the young people, if you don't think protesting matters, you have not been to a city council meeting recently. I think you should not underestimate the amount of power that you have right now. I mean, if that is sending an email to a city council member, sending an email to the mayor or county board or school board member, I mean, we're all gonna do what we should do as politicians and say, we get so many emails. We don't. We don't get nearly that many, and I will promise you, I get almost none from 7th and 8th graders. If I got one, I will promise you, I am going to read that, I'm going to reach back out to you, and your conversation will have an influence. Will it change every single thing? Probably not. But will it change several things? Absolutely. I can guarantee you that. If you reach out to aldermen on a regular basis saying, this item I really support, or this item I have concerns, can you tell me why you support this? I'm a resident in your ward. It's going to have an impact. And I think you have a strong voice now, and that you really should be using it. And so I just want to encourage you to use it.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders, we heard Ms. Suba and Mr. McNamara's opinions on this. Could you tell us, like, what you think about peaceful protests?
I think that as a community, that we are at our best when we come together in some sort of communal activity, hopefully in celebration, hopefully in joy and love. I think more often than not, a protest is really a shared commitment to our collective humanity. We are out there saying that someone else matters too. Often someone that might be different than the norm, or finds themselves in an underdog situation. So I think it's inspirational. I think when people get together and put their voices together to support or lift up or defend someone else, I think that's what we're at best.
Okay, attempt two. Does anyone in the audience have any more questions for our panel members? Okay.
So the biggest question I have is, because I know it's a little off topic, but I heard you, Mr. McNamara was talking about ICE the other day, and it was kind of important because it kind of does affect Philadelphia education, so I was wondering what there's.
I'll repeat it.
Okay, sorry. But what we're like, what can you ensure to us kids that we are safe? I know like it doesn't really relate because I am representing, but like for those Hispanic culture region, what can you ensure our government to keep them safe? Because I have friends that have Hispanic and I don't know if they would take just because of the color of the policy.
So thank you, Mia. And if you didn't hear, I asked a really beautiful question, and I may not say it as beautifully as she did. But Mia stated she heard me talking about ICE recently, and what would I have to say, especially for public education and public education students, of how we can ensure their safety as it revolves around ICE. So you have people, truthfully, in this audience that are more informed about the Rockford Public School policies. A couple of things that I would say. First and foremost, the City of Rockford Police Department does not participate in any ICE activities such as raids and things of that nature. We are certainly not going to follow their new policy or newer policy that they can now just walk into homes without warrants. The only time the City of Rockford Police Department would participate with ICE in any enforcement strategies is if they had a specific individual with a specific warrant, a criminal warrant, would be the only time that we would participate. I would say as it revolves around public schools in the city of Rockford, we are fortunate that we have had really strong relationships with the public schools, with many community leaders, that we are constantly having those conversations with Dr. Aaron Jarrett, with school board members about their policies and procedures, making sure that our police department is aware of those so that there are coordinated responses to if something were to take place on a school campus. I will tell you it's much more difficult when I say campus, much more difficult in parking lots than it would be enforcement inside of the school.
All right, is there anyone else with questions?
Is it fair for schools to monitor students' social media?
Answer your question. Well, at some point, I was gonna try to work in the concept that probably one of the biggest and certainly most current challenges of speech issues in our schools is online discourse, social media. And maybe there's a legal answer as to whether, so, and I'll pass that over to Attorney Zuma to address. How about this? I don't know that I have a position on whether it's fair to monitor it. I do think it's fair to act upon it if it's brought to the school's attention, particularly if it's disturbing or threatening content. All too often we've heard stories of people posting threats of violence, either violence in a school or violence to another individual. Thankfully, often those are caught before anything can go into action, and those are shared with both law enforcement and schools, so the schools can act appropriately. So I think it plays a role in the operation of the school. And whether that extends to monitoring, I'm going to see what the legal opinion is on it.
There is a Supreme Court case that involves a young girl who didn't make it on the varsity squad, and she was upset and took her phone and did a Snapchat at a store and said, used vulgar language to describe the school or the coaches, I don't remember who. But it got back to the school and the cheerleading coaches, and she was going to be in trouble. Well, the ACLU took this case all the way and took it in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said students are not going to be carrying, the restrictions of the school wherever they go. They can't. It's not right, that they have to be watching everything they say and do outside school premises. Now, and so the student won that case. I think she had actually been suspended. So there are restrictions though. If there is, if someone has seen that there are threats that are severe bullying, then those type of things can be restricted and should, because there are threats out there, to someone's life. But just going out and saying something about a teacher outside of the school, based on the Supreme Court case, you're going to be protected. So it really depends on the content. One thing I do want to say and remind you is that colleges and employers are looking at social media. So you might want to be careful about what you post out there.
Can I just add that for many of the platforms, every single thing is going to be there and be there forever. A good rule of thumb, and I will be upfront and tell you I don't always follow it, but I should, is do you want this on the cover of a newspaper? Maybe for a student, it would be, do you want your parents to read this? My kids are much younger than the 7th graders. They're in 3rd and 4th grade. I will just tell you as a parent, it is one of the things that I'm most hoping for. I'm not ready for it. It's coming if I like it or not. But I'm very scared for it, and we are really being cautious about how we even begin to have the discussions of introducing my daughter and son into the world of social media. I think you guys have it so much harder than I did. I mean, so much harder than anyone else in this room. I mean, those conversations are so scary that take place on social media, and I'm so nervous for all of you. I would just be kind to each other and don't do things that you don't want your parents or the newspaper or the broad public to see, and don't say anything on social media that you're not going to say to someone in person. And I would say that to the adults who are emailing their elected officials as well.
It kind of ties back to the concept that it might be protected speech in the sense that the school rules it. But again, it doesn't protect you from consequences. We all know that there's stories out there of people who have posted something inappropriate, been recorded saying something inappropriate at a store or in a parking lot. And when that becomes public, there are consequences. There's any number of stories of people losing their jobs, losing familiar relationships, separate, losing friends, or things they've said online. So the mayor's going to be kind to her.
Anyone else like to ask a question?
Island! How do you guys feel about cell phones in the school?
Love and appreciate all of you, and hope you forget this in about 8 more years. I'm for banning them. I think there's a time and place, and I think there are some certain safety measures that I think are really beneficial from the cell phones to have in schools. I think it could be tailored or reduced from the standpoint that you can only call in emergency situations. Like, I'll give you an example. My daughter has a watch that she can call like 3 people, and it's all for safety reasons. I think it distracts you as someone who has to carry around 2 of them with you. When I am not with them, I am far more productive, and I'm much more focused, less anxious, and I am for being.
I'll say that my daughter, who's here tonight, was a proud Marshall graduate, will strongly disagree with my position that they should absolutely be banned from classrooms. And I am continuously shocked and troubled to hear how much phone activity goes on in classrooms. Total ban from the building, don't know, there's maybe a passing period, maybe they stay in lockers, maybe there's a homeroom period or some period during the day where people can check to see if they got messages from their parents or something like that. But in the classroom, I don't think they have any place in the classroom.
An interesting thing in Bill Gates' neighborhood, his school district, they don't allow cell phones or tablets until like in a much later age. And so if someone who knows all the information doesn't think it's a good thing, someone who doesn't, I have.
If I can add just one more thing, I don't like cell phones in school for the same reason. I've been told by students that if I wasn't always looking at my phone, I know I'd be able to keep up with my classes, and I'm really behind because of the cell phone. Or sometimes there's bullying taking place on the cell phone. It's really affecting their mental state. There are more and more states that are working on banning as a result of this. But I will say one thing that I think is really important. In the day and age where children are dealing with in-school shootings, it terrifies some students when they think of not having a cell phone close to them. And I've spoken to those students, so we cannot ignore that. We have to address that as well.
So should cell phones be allowed on like around school property, and like where would the line be to banning cell phones from schools?
You're still homeschooling kids. This may exist and may not. The phone is not the issue. It's all the apps that come with the phone that's the issue. So, and someone here may know this, I'm guessing one of the 7th graders do. I don't know, like if you can put it on airplane mode and you can only call. If you can only call, I think you should be able to have access to a phone. I don't think you should have access to all of the apps that come with that phone. That's where I think the line should be.
Any more questions? Oh, Ms. Harnett.
Oh, I'll just use mine. Hi, Ms. Harner, social studies teacher. So, okay, this is how I didn't do that. So if you could tell our students their voice in one positive purpose in our city, what would it be?
And the question will be repeated.
Yeah, I asked them.
Right. First, so it's mine.
If they could challenge Rockford students to use their voice for one positive purpose in the city, what would it be?
I'm speaking from personal experience, not just in the legal field, but my own personal experience and people I work with, that I've worked with for decades. We're losing empathy. We're losing respect for one another. There's this idea that some people are worth more, that some lives have more value, that some people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and others do not. We need to change that because, we hear all the time, we're living in such polarized times, we're so divided. Well, one way to unite us is to stop using words that are dehumanizing, that are destroying the human spirit. I see it every day. People are hurting. People are hurting as a result of the way they're spoken about, how they're treated, how they are treated as less than human beings. We got to change that if we want to become less polarized and more of a United States of America.
I'm going to solicit some audience participation. I think Cooper Sanders sitting back against the wall there. Cooper, very loudly,
Yeah?
I want you to say, what is something we stand for?
Huh?
We talk about it all the time. What do we stand for?
The little guy,
What about the little guy?
sticking up for him.
Sticking up for the little guy. I think that if all of us had more of a mindset of sticking up for the little guy, and as we age, our concept of who and what the little guy is can change from maybe the smallest kid in the class at one point, to the person that sits alone at lunch, to the person that's marginalized by media or government policies or propaganda. If we can all start to collectively stick up for the little guy, I think that would be a tremendous use of your passion and talent.
So I would say a couple of things. I can't just give one. One, I think genuinely what you're doing now, civility and discourse, is mandatory. Two, not necessarily totally local, but I think when you're talking about polarization, I think, yes, words absolutely matter. I also think gerrymandering really plays into it. I think if you're in Illinois on the left, it does. If you're in Texas on the right, it does. It's nonpartisan gerrymandering left and right. And I think it pushes you to have who can be the most extreme on that side, and that's who we're going to have elected, or who the only people who can get through those primaries to then be at the general elections before us. And the last thing that I would say is for you specifically, you really should be pushing for youth. And when I say pushing for youth, like we have a community relations commission. Why doesn't that have a youth position on it? We have a city council. Why Why doesn't it have a youth position? Why, we have a county board, we have a school board. I'm not saying you should be a voting member necessarily, but I certainly think you should be there because we should be developing our youth, and you all should be saying, not just saying, but demanding a position there.
Any more questions?
Vicky is the last one. All right.
How do students' free speech rights change inside of school versus outside of school?
I would say the school rules is the thing that would guide and be the biggest change inside of the schools.
Yes, you have many more rights outside of the school. Like we talked about before, in school, there are the restrictions of lewd and obscene, vulgar language. You can't promote drugs, drug use, and anything that substantially disrupts your school day. Those are going to be restricted in school and aren't going to apply outside of school.
Well, that's exactly it. There needs to be an extra layer of protection within the schools to ensure that the schools will function as they're supposed to, that they have a safe environment, inclusive environment for all, and that they're advancing the mission of education. So you, out in the streets, you can get away with wearing a shirt that has something vulgar on it maybe, but you can't do that in here. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard within the school, and I think that our school district, our schools, our teachers, our educators all do an excellent job of prioritizing it.
And I think there's one that's been going to ask.
Okay, so I've been thinking about what are some ways or ideas you think can help, like, to stop bullying that is happening around the school, or like,
It's really a tough one about bullying. There are anti-bully laws now in place. The severe, pervasive type bullying. But I think if we take the time to get one another, to know one another, and often some of the bullying that I'm familiar with are kids that don't know one another. They've stereotyped, there's generalizations going on, and they don't know how to interact. I think that's something that the more you get to know someone, and expose them to different kinds of people, cultures. There is less bullying, but it's not easy. But there are great curriculums out there that help, and I think RPS has incorporated some of those.
I think what you said is so important. I think it also goes back to some earlier conversations. I think it was you, Linda, who mentioned empathy. And I think that empathy comes from just having conversations, building relationships. I mean, I have immense respect for Linda. We don't always agree with her, but I will tell you, I'm never going to think Linda's coming from a place other than love and genuine concern. Will I always agree with her positions? No. But we have had enough conversations. I know who she is. I know what she stands for. I know what she's passionate about. And we're not always going to agree on everything. But you'll never see us sitting here calling each other names or going on social media and saying really horrible things. It's just, no, we may not disagree here, but we'll agree on the 99 other things. But I think that comes from having relationships, having that communication. It goes back to the very beginning of the discussion of having those safe spaces to have those dialogues. And if that's in the home or if that's in the school, I think all of it kind of comes full circle.
Thank you. I feel the same way about Mayor. I will say that schools that have incorporated the curriculum of kindness and empathy do have less bullying. And so it just goes to show, that it does work.
On behalf of the organizers and the school community, we'd like to express our sincerest thank yous to everyone for your attendance and contribution to this evening.
We are especially honored to have Mayor McNamara, Ms. Zuba, and Director Sanders joining our bid. We truly appreciate you guys sharing your time and expertise with our students and family here tonight.
We invite you to join us for a brief reception, write a message on the reflection wall, and try having some civil discourse with other community members about topics we discussed here today. Thank you all, and we hope you have a good evening.